and then hit him with the intro. What's going on, brother? How you been, man?
It's been a minute.
It has been a minute. Well, you've been traveling the world. You've been going to all these different conferences. You've been doing some really cool things, man. Dancing in New Orleans.
Yeah. This year was a little different.
What was your biggest takeaway from? I wouldn't say biggest takeaway. Just let's talk about that whole experience. Where did you go?
For the conference, I went to FinCon. Which
FinCon.
This is my third. This was my third FinCon. It's always a dope experience. I think it's cool when you get to be in a space with a bunch of people who look like you, who have a very similar mission to you, and a lot of people that I hung out with this year were people that I had met last year or years prior and just kept in contact with over the course of the year. So it was like a really big homecoming kind of situation. And just because of the way that I've been branding myself, a lot of the experience that I have at FinCon is people walking up to me like, "Oh, I know you. Can I take a picture with you? Like, can you sign my book?" So that's always cool too, to just get the validation that, you put in the work and people are recognizing it. But this year I went to the conference and I did not attend any of the sessions. Like, I was legit outside all the time, like hanging out with people, connecting, having dinner. But it was a vibe. It was definitely, it was in New Orleans, so of course it was a vibe, but great food, great music, great culture. Like, I love New
Orleans. I know that they have like Black FinCon, or like there's like FinCon, and then you have like the people who like the Black creators. They all get together and they link up. Is that kind of what you're involved with?
Yeah. So last year when I went to FinCon, I did not participate in the Black FinCon kind of antics because I was worried about COVID. So I was just like, all right, I'm just gonna go do what I gotta do, go back to my room and chill. This year I wasn't worried about COVID, and I actually ended up getting COVID. But this year, like, everybody just fellowship. Like, I was looking at a lot of the people's recap videos, and I'm like, damn, I'm in everybody's video. I'm in everybody's picture. Like, I was outside. So, yeah, there's definitely a group of us Black content creators who attend FinCon and get together and kind of do our own thing.
So you had a tweet and it said, "You can't talk about financial trauma and not have Rakim Sabri in the room."
Oh yes. That was kind of like a you know how you be like manifesting stuff, like you just declare it and let it be what it is. And what's really funny about that is that came true. Like, I was on a panel actually at FinCon, which was unplanned. Initially I had applied to be a speaker. They approved me, but they approved me for a topic that I did not want to talk about. And I was like, nah, I'm good. So then I get to the conference. I'm having breakfast with one of the Black content creators who's on a panel, and she let me know that a couple of people on her original panel had dropped. And she was like, do you want to jump in? And it was on money and mental health, which is my lane. So I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. And so when the moderator introduced me, he introduced me as Rakim Sabri, author of Financially Irresponsible and a thought leader on financial trauma. And I was like, damn, I never heard that intro before. But it's really kind of like a full circle moment when I had shared that tweet. Like, that's what I want people to recognize me for, the work that I do in, talking about financial trauma and helping kind of normalize those conversations about money and mental health and financial therapy. So I've, in a very short time, cemented myself as a thought leader and expert on the topic. I was recognized by the Financial Therapy Association earlier this year for that work. I won 2 awards for my newsletter called Overcoming Financial Trauma through the Plutus Foundation. So just like, damn, like in a year or less than a year, I'm getting these awards and these recognitions for this work that I do. So I'm like, yeah, you can't have that conversation without me being a part of it.
And I think what's crazy is you said the work that you're doing. You didn't just say like who you are and the knowledge that you have. Like a lot of people, they could be solving a lot of problems. They could be helping a lot of people. They're just not doing the work. And the work doesn't have to look like necessarily going to a job and trying to get a job that will hire you as a financial therapist. It's like, no, just put your information out to the world. So when you look at the work, it's the show that you have and the episodes you put out and the newsletters and the topics that you write on and the subjects that you touch on and the things that have gone viral and the places that you show up in and the books that you're dropping. That's the work. That's what's going to get people recognized. And I think what's so cool about it is it reminds me a lot of what my mom says, because my mom, she was working in a firm and now she has her own firm. And she's a part of this organization that like unites certified public accountants in California. And when she first got into this organization, she did it through the firm she was working with. And so she would show up to the organization, they would recognize her, but they're more so looking at the firm. Now she shows up with her own organization and it's a different level of respect because they got to respect the firm. Guess what? The firm is me. So therefore, we're having a conversation about me, not having a conversation about the company that you work for.
Yeah.
And so I think that's powerful. You had another tweet that I saw that I really wanted to touch on. And you said that somebody introduced you as a financial therapist.
Oh man, I was wondering if you saw that one, because that man, that caused a lot of controversy. The concept caused a lot of controversy because I also shared that story on LinkedIn, and I got into a back and forth with someone, and just kind of give the background. I don't remember exactly what the tweet was, but just giving the background to the story. I struggled between this year and last year with identifying as a financial therapist because of the ongoing argument around who can call themselves a financial therapist. And the space is unregulated. So technically anybody can call themselves a financial therapist, just like anybody could call themselves a financial coach or a financial advisor. But when you hear that title therapist, a lot of people feel like it implies that you are licensed with, some governing board to practice therapy. And financial therapy is not a mental health practice. It incorporates an understanding of mental health practices and financial education practices to help people move through their relationship with money. And so this year for me has been just validating over the course of the recognition, the awards, the platforms that I've been able to join or build on, writing for Forbes, all of those things. And, being active in the financial therapy community, a lot of financial therapists have had conversations with me saying, Rakim, like, what's the hesitation? Like, lean into this. Like, you have already done the work. And when I was honored at the Financial Therapy Association's conference this year, I wasn't in attendance, but I had heard about it because so many people that are a part of that community were sending me text messages and DMs like, yo, you got this award. Like, and so FinCon was really kind of like the cherry on top for me when it came to people recognizing me in the space as an authority, as an expert. And so there were a lot of people who wanted to meet me who didn't get a chance to. And there were a lot of people who did meet me who, we got to sit down and fellowship with. But I joined the live of 2 financial therapists. And as soon as I go into the live, the person who's the main host was not following me and I was not following them. They stop the live and they're like, oh, look, our fellow financial therapist, Rakim, joined. And they, start talking about me and they're like, oh, did you get a chance to meet? And I'm just like, damn, like you're derailing your whole program to introduce me into the space where I just showed up. And so I recounted that experience through the tweet and through the post on LinkedIn saying like, basically my learning is that just because I don't brand myself as a financial therapist doesn't mean that that's not what I represent to other people.
Mm.
And that part of me leaning into my expertise and authority is to acknowledge that, like, the work that I do is therapeutic. Like, there's no debating that. And the work that I do is self-evident. So there are people who are licensed or registered as like certified financial planners, or people who have a mental health background as a licensed mental health counselor or a licensed clinical social worker, whatever, who back into the finance side and they call themselves financial therapists because they were a therapist, a mental health therapist. And even though the disciplines blend, it's not the same thing. So the people that have those licenses have this kind of like gatekeeping hard stance on, well, if you're not a licensed therapist, you can't call yourself a therapist. And that's just not the reality of the situation. So my approach previously was, I'm not even going to put myself in an environment where I can be questioned and, have the argument, because coming from a financial background, like, I understand, fiduciary responsibility and, just the ethics that come with how you title yourself and sell your services. But now I've gotten to a place where I'm like, nah, like, I put in the work, people recognize that I'm here, that I've done what I've done. And, whether I decide to call myself a financial therapist or not, like, who is that hurting, right? The work that I'm doing is the impact. And I think another layer, and I've had this conversation with financial therapists and with people who are not financial therapists kind of offline, is that the cultural competence involved in helping the people that I help, specifically Black people, with their relationship with money, you have to come at it from a different approach, right? You think about the therapeutic effect of going to the barbershop or going to the hair salon and being able to have these community driven therapy sessions, right? That's therapy, like, that's healing work. And so if I'm sitting in a barber's chair and I'm getting my hair cut and I'm like, man, like, my money is stressing me out, I can't pay this bill, or I can't come to get my hair cut as frequently as I would like to because I have this obligation or whatever. I mean, we could take it outside of the lens of finance too, because the conversation is a therapeutic across the board. But like, that is a cultural thing. And so in understanding, how do you reach people where they are? How do you acknowledge the role of culture in healing? And how do you apply all of that to the way that we perceive or interact with or behave around money? Like, that's therapy, that's financial therapy. And so there's a lot of like gatekeeping and bureaucracy around these titles and certifications and, who has to prove what. And for a long time in my journey, I was like on this, like, I guess, quest to get as many certifications and recognitions and have these people validate me, when really the validation should come from myself and from the work that I do. And so I've just matured into being like, you know what, like, I did what I gotta do. Like, there's the trophies, there's the awards, there's the publications, there's, the features, all of the stuff. Like, it matters, but it doesn't matter. Like, the impact is what matters. And so I don't need to lead with my credentials anymore. I don't need to lead with what it is that I've accomplished anymore. I lead with what is it that I do. And sometimes people feel like, maybe I'm being too humble, or, like, why are you not bragging on yourself? Or why are you not talking about it? I'm like, listen, if I told you everything that I did, I would be here for 5-10 minutes listing off accomplishments. Like, what does that solve? And people feel a way about it, and they're entitled to feel a way about it. But I've just gotten to a point where I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to sit here and argue about whether or not I deserve to be in this space.
Hold on one second. So this is a controversial topic, but I saw that you tweeted about it. You said that Keith Lee got the restaurants in Atlanta on Undercover Boss, streaming on TikTok, and it's a comedy I didn't know I needed. So I guess I'm gonna go ahead and go first. But did you hear what I said about Undercover Boss and Keith Lee?
Yeah.
Because there was a debate And you know what I'm finding? What I'm finding online is anytime there's a debate, both people are right in their own way. So, for example, you have Ocho Cinco saying we shouldn't go online and tear down black businesses. He's right, in my opinion. And then you have Shannon Sharp, who's like, if they can't run a business, then they shouldn't be in business. To some people, that's right. To me, I think that's stupid. I hate when we make comments like that. I hate when we disqualify folks who came from generations of nothing, that they can't hop out there and make everything run in however short a time. I don't care if it take you 20 years. They was in chains for way longer than that. They was in Jim Crow for way longer than that. And I've talked about this before. And so Keith Lee, I see both sides of the coin. I just always tend to lend on the business owner, and especially the black business owner, because it's not the same. Everybody gives grace to anybody else. But when it's a black business owner, it better be Ruth Chris or else. But one thing I'll also say is that there's people in Atlanta who don't enjoy going to black restaurants. There's people in Atlanta who will happily wait in those 2 hour lines. A lot of times, people who aren't going to wait in those 2 hour lines are the people who don't live in Atlanta, who aren't from Atlanta, who are just coming into town, like Keith Lee. Like, for example, when we went to Atlanta, we were there during the Beyonce concert. We didn't go for the Beyonce concert. We were there for the Beyonce concert. That Sunday, we decided we're going to brunch. And every place we went to had a line out the door and a long wait. We ended up having to find some other spot. But then what happened when I went back to Atlanta like 2 weeks later for Invest Fest, I went to all the spots I wanted to go to in the first place. But I didn't realize that there's people who were really just like, they said the wait's 2 hours. We're going to wait 2 hours. We're going to get this experience. Because when I did go inside Breakfast at Barney's, it was fly. It was very nice. It was very well put together. It was a dope spot. And so I think that any damage that Keith Lee might have done temporarily will ultimately end up being rectified. And they're going to learn a lesson in the process. But I think that we got to start understanding that being a black business owner isn't as easy as being a white business owner, or being an Asian business owner, or being a Middle Eastern business owner. It's just not the same. It's not the same for multiple reasons. And so the fact that somebody hopped out there and they did something and they created something that became successful, well, that should be celebrated. But a lot of times it isn't celebrated. It gets torn down, criticized, critiqued, looked at. But what I'm realizing is that kind of comes with success. Like 50 Cent once said, you can't pray for success and not pray for the haters and the jealous people and the people trying to steal and rob from you. It comes hand in hand. The lawsuits come with success. The audits come with success. Like, if you weren't successful, they wouldn't be looking at you. But since you are, I think sometimes we think that you get to, because when people don't realize, like, when you're poor, anybody checking for you, they do not care about you. They're not looking at nothing you got going on. They do not care. When you get rich, all of a sudden they give a fuck. And so we think that you get to be rich and nobody care, because your whole life nobody cared, nobody was checking for you. Like, no, it's different. But that just comes with the territory. That doesn't mean that anything's bad or wrong. It's just, it comes with success. Haters, jealousy, people robbing from you, people you don't even know trying to tear you down. And that's why successful people got to hang around with successful people, because they're the only people that get it. If you hang around people who don't get it, they're like, well, why are you getting criticized? I'm not getting criticized. It's because ain't nobody checking for you, boo. And so it's like you got to move around the people who are experiencing that. So I went on a whole tangent on the whole Keith Lee thing, but my perspective is he can say whatever he wants. But I don't think that we as a community should start thumbing our nose up at business owners, especially if you don't own a business. And that's what happens a lot, is people who don't own a business who will be like, well, you're a business. The customer's always right. And you shouldn't have all those rules, and the wait should be longer. And you should hire more. Like, that's easy to say on the outside. That's easy to say when you're just showing up and waiting. But when you're doing the person in the back cooking for 500 people, 5,000 people in a day, then we can talk. When you start having to make sure that your staff's not getting mistreated, then we can talk. When you have to make sure that you're not throwing away food because some crazy person ordered it and kept making changes and kept making modifications and kept saying they don't like this, then you'll probably get some rules too. But a lot of people that have never been on that side to have an opinion from outside of the club, like Chris Brown once said.
Yeah, nah, I agree with you. I agree with a lot of what you said, and I think there's a lot of issues at play, especially when it comes to social media, right? So I follow Keith Lee. I like Keith Lee like quite a lot, and people have elevated him to like this status of almost like deified, right? Like if Keith Lee says it, then it is what it is. And when we saw, I mean, I've been following him, like I said, for a while. As he started to climb in popularity, there have been many instances where he would endorse a business, black or not, and talk
Mhm.
about how good the food is. And then overnight, these people are like successes. And so I think that's a lot of the fanfare that got him to have the following that he has. And so when I've been watching his stuff lately, especially his food tour, what I realize is like he's not going into Atlanta to tear down a black business. Like that's what social media is doing. He's going to do exactly what he's been doing to review the food, to review the experience. And what I give him credit for is that he's not, or at least he's making an effort. I won't say that he's not. He's making an effort to not allow his celebrity to get to his head. So multiple instances where he stopped at a restaurant that had a long wait and he sent his family in to be seated, and they're like, oh, you know, it's a long wait, whatever, whatever. And then they realize Keith Lee is associated. They want to put him to the front of the line. He's like, nah, treat me like a regular person. If you got the long wait, you got the long wait. But don't like make other people, make normal people wait because I'm here. And so people realize the power of his endorsement. And and I think he realizes the power of his endorsement, but it's the peanut gallery. And I mean, I know you can relate to this because I've seen it happen to you, and I can relate to it because I've been a part of it, where you share a position on social media and somebody will take your position and align it to a narrative that they want to tell, and depending on the size of their audience or other people who may be bitter or just agree with that perspective because they had a bad experience, what your original intended message was becomes warped because people have the ability to add their own nuance of context in the quote tweets and say, oh, this is what my experience is here, or this is what this person is doing here. And sometimes I've seen like your tweets or my tweets get blown out of proportion by people who have never had a conversation with us, people who don't know anything about the work that we've done leading up to this point. And so you're creating a perspective or an opinion on an individual and an individual statement in the limited amount of characters that we have on Twitter based off of that just flash encounter without understanding how much work and how much love that we have for our community, and turn it into an ugly thing. And so I think that happens quite a lot with Keith Lee because, like you said, he's achieved a level of success, and so with that, he's going to get haters. He's going to get people who jump on the bandwagon. He's going to get people who love him, but love him in a toxic kind of a way. And so they're promoting the fact that Keith Lee said that he didn't have a good experience, or that this food didn't taste good, or whatever the case is. And so that's what the law is. And these echo chambers on social media are so dangerous because people will see somebody else's review of somebody else's review and they'll make that as law. So you dropped the bar when you was like, successful people need to be around successful people. Like, I mean, that goes back to what I was just telling you as it relates to the financial therapy stuff. Like, I've been validated and vetted by the financial therapy community, and I have people outside of the financial therapy community telling me what I can and can't call myself. Like, how crazy is
Mhm.
that? And I saw a post. It wasn't on Twitter, but it was on Instagram of Rashad Bilal's recently, where he kind of screenshotted an interaction that he had in the comments, and he was like, I have just accepted the role of the bad guy. And I think that when you get to a certain level of success, you just have to accept the role of the bad guy because if you're trying to like make everybody understand, like you'll be explaining yourself to people who don't deserve the explanation all day long.
Yep.
And you know, that's unfortunate, but you know, as far as the black businesses and tearing black businesses down and the grace that we give or don't give to black business, I mean, you and I have talked about that going on years now. And I always point back to the miseducation of the Negro, because it's like a pathology, like it's a psychological thing, it's a sociological thing. Like that is how we are groomed into today's society to like go into these spaces and feel like, oh well, if it's, you know, basically the white man's ice is colder, like black people, you know, we got to be just as, you know, not even just as good, we got to be better. And that's unfortunate. I had an experience in New Orleans with the Black FinCon crew where we had I wasn't a part of the planning committee, but we had planned a dinner for all of us to get together at a restaurant. And somehow, some way, the wires got crossed and the communication, you know, missed out. And so the restaurant was not prepared for the large number of us that showed up. And I was late, so I wasn't a part of the original, like the show up. But this is a story that's being recounted to me. What happened was, as this group of black people are walking down the street, another restaurant that was black owned the owner of the restaurant happened to, you know, catch wind of what was going on, decided to open up his restaurant early to accommodate the black population of, you know, content creators, and was like, look, my staff is not here. We're a brand new business. We're just opening up. We're opening up early so that we can accommodate you guys. Please bear with us. And there's a video in circulation somewhere, I don't know where it is specifically, where, you know, one of us is saying, look, like these guys are opening up early to accommodate us. We're going to take it easy on them. We're going to be patient with them because they did not have to do that. They're going to be making wings and they're going to be making fries. And, you know, if you're going to eat, this is what you're going to have, and that's going to be okay. And it was a vibe. I pulled up and there was just a sea of black faces in this restaurant that was opened outside of its normal business hours, trying to cater to and accommodate us. And I think that that is a perfect example of the understanding that we need to, not the understanding, the grace that we need to have for black businesses, because I do believe that, you know, at least at the onset of launching that business, that black businesses have positive intent, particularly for our community. And like, we want to do the right thing and the best thing, but we may not have all of the resources or all of the business acumen or all of the staff to support what the demand is. And so being upfront about, look, like these are my limitations, but I'm gonna do the best that I can for you. And as a customer or a consumer of that business, we need to go in there and say, you know what, I'm gonna have patience. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna be understanding. I'm going to be kind. Like, you don't have to go into these places and be nasty. And so it's really interesting because there's so many layers to it, in terms of like what gets publicized and plastered all over social media around what the experience is or what the rules are or what the exchange was. And then people go into these spaces with this entitlement where they're supposed to be, you know, treated like they're Keith Lee or Beyonce or whatever. And then they have the bad experience and they're like, oh, this person's unprofessional. No, you were a difficult customer to deal with. Like, they were unprofessional. They were reacting to your how you was acting.
Just saying. I'm just saying. It takes. So we're gonna pivot a little bit and talk about, because I just kind of want to talk about these topics. The Cheesecake Factory video. Apparently, it was fake. Everything on the internet is fake these days. But it still stirred up a good conversation because a lot of women are like, "Yeah, you can't take me to Cheesecake Factory on the first date." Where do you typically take a lady that you're meeting on the first date?
It varies, but well, I've seen the lists, and I'm on the list because coffee shops is definitely like a go-to. Bookstores is definitely a go-to. I personally like the Cheesecake Factory, so the Cheesecake Factory is definitely a go-to. I'm not a Red Lobster guy, and that's not because I have anything against Red Lobster or their business. I just that's not what I opt to go to. But if I liked Red Lobster, I would go to Red Lobster. Like, I think that it's more about the experience of spending time than it is about the location. And for a first date, forget about it. Like, I'm not getting ready to break the bank because we're courting. And it's unfortunate, but I'm aware of the fact that there are women who will accept dates from men who they're not interested in so that they could get a free meal. And that's not 100% of the women that you engage with, but that's certainly a reality. I have female friends who have told me that they've done that. Um, and then, there's the reverse that's true. Like, I mean, you could sit in a McDonald's parking lot and have a date and everything be great. So, I mean, certainly that's not like my first choice or my second choice or my third choice when it comes to courting, because you're trying to demonstrate interest and you want to kind of give a clean, polished perspective. So, but I go to the places that I like to go. And what's funny about the Cheesecake Factory, as you mentioned that the whole thing was fake, which is another crazy pathology on social media because these narratives are being created and pushed by skits that go viral that then people feel bought into, like, oh yeah, like, nah, I'm too good for that, or I deserve more. When I was growing up, I thought that the Cheesecake Factory was like it. Like, I thought you made it. Like, I thought that
We
that
was
was
we was going to Cheesecake Factory for birthdays. Like,
I
it's
thought
your
that the
birthday, girl.
Cheesecake
We going to the
Factory was
Cheesecake
the
Factory.
was the high end, like, oh, we go to Cheesecake Factory, they got these large plates. Like, I used to get the orange chicken thing, and then you
Order
get
the
the
cheesecake,
cheesecake and
girl.
the bread, and I mean, I like the Cheesecake Factory. So there's a nostalgia to it as well. And going to those places, or going to that place specifically. I've had several dates at the Cheesecake Factory. I've had several celebrations at the Cheesecake Factory. I've gone to Cheesecake Factory for happy hours and celebrate. Like, I just don't understand the
Can
I
I
don't know.
say something?
Yeah.
I feel, so let's just assume that the skit was real. Let's just say like it was real. You also got to look at that lady had to be like 42. She was in her 40s or older. And so as we age out of things. So maybe the fact that you don't want to go to obvious restaurants means you're too damn old to be dating. Because
That
I feel like if you find a little 24-year-old girl, she gonna be like bragging about it. Yeah, he took me to Cheesecake Factory. And that's why a lot of men date down. And that's why the women who are in their 40s are gonna have to date men in their 50s because they've been through that era. At this era, you live life at a different level, not because it's better or worse, but because you've already experienced it. I've already been to Cheesecake Factory 15, 20 times. And so now I want to try something different. But one of the things I will say is that, brothers, if you encounter a woman who has these high standards for the very first date when you don't know her, she's probably going to make your life a living hell because it's never going to stop. It's always going to be, I expect, I deserve, and it's always going to be at a level that is going to stretch you and stretch you thin. And there's a lot of brothers out here struggling trying to provide for some girl who just has expectations. And so the reason why I knew that my wife was a good woman, and we've been to way better restaurants than any Cheesecake Factory. We've done cheesecake many times, but whenever we go wherever casually now. But when I didn't have it and I was working towards it, she just rocked out with whatever I had. So like the very first time we went somewhere, we went to Jack in the Box. Like, and usually when I go to restaurants, I just order a burger. I'm like, I grew up, it was always like, we got drinks at home. She didn't grow up like that. She ordered the combo. I was like, damn, she kind of wilding. You got the fries and the drink. You could have just got the fries. We got drinks at home, girl. But we progressed from there. And I think that that's what you should be looking for. It's like Pastor Mike Todd said, he's like, we're not looking at where he takes you on the first day. We're looking at whether he understands his calling, whether he understands what he's supposed to be doing. And I have a feeling that there's a lot of people. I had this thought this morning, And I was like, man, if like a big part of the reason why I got married is because I saw my parents get married. I don't know what life looks like not married. I'm scared. I'm like, what does that life look like? I don't want it because I never seen it. And so I would imagine that like people, if they've seen people survive single, if I can survive single, it's nothing. If I find somebody, I find somebody. I don't. But for other people, it's like I gotta find somebody because this single life, I don't know how it ends. I know how to end it for my dad. He out there just chilling. But I don't want that life. I wanted the family life. And so basically, this all goes on to say that brothers be careful. I think that a lot of like the courting and the vetting comes with that. And the guy in the video did it. He was like, "Oh, you don't accept the fact that we're gonna go to Cheesecake Factory." Granted, he planned to taking her somewhere way better, and she was late, and she was dragging time. She's just telling you everything you need to know about her without telling you. And I think that that's how you have to kind of vet people as you're dating them anyway. It's like, oh, well, she has no respect for my time. We're supposed to be ready, and she takes an hour after that to get ready, and then she ruins the whole plan that I had because I had a reservation at a better restaurant because they're 40. And maybe if you are 40 or above, you probably should be taking women to Cheesecake Factory. But um, he still made an effort to take her somewhere, and then she started acting like that. These are all signs that's telling you she's whack and she's gonna make your life a living hell. So if you press through, you're gonna be very disappointed. You got to cut that off.
I think you said something too, though, that I could tie back to financial trauma, that I will tie back to financial trauma. That's super important. You talked about the experiences that you had growing up versus what your wife had growing up. And like those early experiences tied into money are going to surface in courtship, right? Like if you have a vigilance around money and the person that you're dating has an avoidance around money, well, there's going to be a clash there, right? If this person thinks that having money is a inherently evil thing, or that you had to do something unethical or immoral to get to a level of financial success, and you place a value on money. So what I'm referring to are called money scripts. You place a value on money that, if I had more money, I would have more power. Or if I had more money, the problems in my life would go away. And so the way that you view and believe about money is going to influence obviously how you engage with that. And so when you bring those two opposing perspectives into the same space without having a conversation around it, or without having a conversation around how it impacts you individually, then certainly it's going to impact you collectively. And so there's this assessment that I took recently, as I study, financial therapy and, all the ways that this stuff shows up in my life. There's four primary money scripts. There's money avoidance, money worship, money status, and money vigilance. And money avoidance is typically characterized by scarcity. And you see a lot of low income or Black people who have experienced poverty demonstrating money avoidance. And so based off of my upbringing, I just assumed that if I take this assessment, money avoidance is going to be the dominant money script that shows up for me. And what happened when I took the assessment was that money worship was the money script that was dominant for me. And I was surprised by that. But what I had to realize is that, yes, the experiences that I had as a child influenced the way that I perceive money. But also the experiences and the education that I've had with money in my recent years, and certainly as an independent adult, are going to have a greater impact on the way that I view money. And so, as an entrepreneur and somebody who is financially educated, money worship, the idea that, oh, if I had more money, I could do more. Or if I had more money, I would have more influence. Or if I had more money, my business would be more successful because I understand money as a tool. I'm not so focused on, I need to get rid of this money as soon as possible, which is characterized by money avoidance. And so I was like, damn, like I didn't think that I was one of those money worship people. But it's also a reflection of of a positive trend in the way that I view money, especially as it relates to limiting beliefs. I told a story recently where, based off of interacting with successful people, people who are successful financially, Black people who are successful financially, that I've been able to uncover limiting beliefs that I've had around money that I just interpreted as me not caring, right? I grew up, people would ask me, "Oh, what's your favorite car? What kind of car do you want? What kind of clothes do you want to wear? Like, what brands do you wear? What kind of watches do you want? Like, all of those things." And I'm like, I'm not a materialistic guy. I don't care about those things. Those things don't matter to me. If I could go and choose between first class and business class, or regular, I'm just going to save my money. If I could go between 5-star and 3-star, well, the experience is going to be relatively close. And I'm making these assumptions on the basis of what it is that I have not yet experienced. But when I experienced flying first class, I was like, hold on a second. This is different, right? Like, the service is different, the comfort is different, the way the seat feels is different, the space is different. Okay, it's okay for me to want to experience a higher quality of life. It doesn't make me a bad person. It doesn't take away from my ethics or my morals around going out and getting money. It's just, now I've had the experience of more. And so now I know that it's okay for me to want more. And that transition of kind of identifying that limiting belief and moving through that limiting belief to say, you know what, I deserve more. How do I get that? Of course, the money script is going to change. Now it's not like I need to get money and give it away, or I need to get money and, pay for this homeless person, or I need to get money and, give away all my money to support my community. Now it's like, I need to put on the life vest first. I need to have these experiences so that I can go back and tell people that it's okay to have these experiences. And in the process of doing the work that I do, which sometimes is a thankless work, right? Like, I'm out here talking about the importance of financial education, and also talking about the importance of acknowledging systems theory and the fact that we exist within these systems that are designed to hold us back and keep us down, and that we can learn how to navigate through those systems through using financial education, through interacting with other people who are successful, through just the acknowledgement of these obstacles without allowing those obstacles to defeat us. And I deserve to get paid for that work, right? Like, I don't need to be standing on a shoebox on the corner, a soapbox on the corner, preaching all of this stuff for free. Like, I deserve to get paid for the work that I do. And so, in that realization, I'm like, okay, cool. You can go out here, you could do good work, you could do quality work and improve your community, but you can also make a living. You also are deserving of that. And again, going back to, courting, or even just regular friendships, regular relationships, the relationships that you have with your family, your parents, right? Like, if they're stuck in the scripts of, what influence their behavior or their interactions with money, there's going to be a clash, because they're not going to understand the perspectives or the approaches that you are taking to securing your financial future. And so, understanding your financial psychology is important. That's the moral of the story. And understanding how your personal financial psychology influences the relationships that you have, the decisions that you make or don't make, what's important to you as it relates to marriage, as it relates to education, as it relates to the type of work that you do. It's all of these things are influenced by how we experience or don't experience money growing up.
You had a tweet. We're gonna end it with this one. I'm trying to do like 45-minute episodes. You said the problem is you want to be God and the child of God at the same time. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, that was a quote that I came up with in a conversation that I had with a friend recently. They were going through a really difficult time, and they said they started reading the Bible. And as they're studying the Bible, they're getting, of course, this inspiration around spirituality that focuses on faith. And so with that, they're like, faith has carried me through, faith has carried me through, faith has carried me through. And I realized that God never abandoned me. And I'm like, hold on a second. I'm a spiritual person. and I have a religious background. I don't call myself religious today, but what I've spent a lot of time focusing on faith too, focusing on the belief, like holding on to this is what my purpose is spiritually that moves me through these spaces, that gave me the reassurance to know that if I leave my job, I'm gonna be all right. Right. Even without knowing what is coming next, I'm gonna be all right. Like that's faith. That's stepping out on faith. But in the process of focusing so much on faith, there's the practical side of it, right? Like there have been many instances over the last, it's been 2.5 years, I can't believe, but over the last 2.5 years where I'm like, did I make the right decision? Or if I could do this all over again, how would I have done this differently? What would I have positioned financially? What would I have positioned operationally, systemically in my business in order to be successful? And of course, hindsight is 2020. So as we're having this conversation, I was like, I'm gonna use your own scripture, right? Like I said, this person's Christian using the Bible. And I'm like, you look in Genesis when, in the story of creation, where God says, "Let us create man in our image and of our likeness." I say you are deferring all of the good things in life to God, and you are claiming all of the bad things that you've experienced as your innately flawed human self. I said, but you cannot honor God and believe that you are not a creator like God, right? Like you cannot. I said, faith is. I'm sorry, I'm messing up the quote. I said sometimes the demonstration of faith is a form of creation, and that what you have to realize is that you are constantly creating, and that is an attribute of God. Like God creates, God destroys, God builds, and so I said the problem is that you want to be God and a child of God at the same time. You want to give the glory to God, but you also want to be responsible for the decisions that you make in this moment. And what the realization that I've come to, or rather what is the belief that I hold, is that we are reflections of God, and in being a reflection of God, that doesn't make us separate from God. We have to stop looking at ourselves as something separate from God. Not to go around and say I am the God, but that we are innately, that we have power, and we need to accept the power and the responsibility that comes with that power, the good and the bad of that. What's up,
You
Nolan?
want to know? Oh, he can't hear you.
Uh,
One of the things that I would say is that I started to have a deeper relationship with God and a better understanding of God when I became a father, because there's a lot of similarities between God the Father and then you the Father. And I remember one time we were doing something, and my son, he said something like, um, he was scared. And I was like, "Why are you scared?" I was like, "You're bigger and stronger than anything you can come against." And he was like, "I'm not bigger and stronger." I was like, "Well, what did I say that you are?" It's like, what did your father say that you are? And I think that, like, that, and then realizing that you kind of serve as an example. And I'm starting to realize, like, as he gets older, he doesn't necessarily do what I say. He does what I do. And so, um, you got to be very conscious of what you're doing. And so that was one of the reasons why I went to work. I didn't want my son to see me sitting on the couch. And so, um, started getting up, going to work every single day. I see him less, but I've heard him say like things like, "Oh yeah, I got to go to work," or "Yeah, I got to go and drive my car and go to the office, and I got to wear a suit and get a haircut." And that's exactly what I wanted. And like, your life has to be an example of um, how you want your child to live by you living in that way. And so, I think you're 100% right. I think that a lot of times, especially in like the Black community, God kind of becomes the only solution. It's like, "Oh well, God will provide, God will make a way." It's like, no, like, you make a way, and then God will come along what you are already doing. That's how it's supposed to work. It's not supposed to be, "Oh well, I'm just gonna sit here, do nothing, probably take steps backwards, but then God will make it happen for me." That's not gonna happen. That's not how it works. And I want people to realize that there's so much power in themselves, and that's why I even started like a lot of the things I started, is because I was realizing like a lot of these other communities aren't doing anything we can't do. A lot of these people who are building businesses or getting degrees or getting advanced education and progressing in their careers, they're not doing anything we can't do. The only difference is what we think and what we believe, and that's influencing our actions or lack of action.
Yeah, yeah. I talk to my dad a lot more as an adult than I did when I was a kid, and it's funny. Like my dad was a young parent; he was 17 when I was
Mm-mm,
born,
mm-mm,
and I have a younger brother who's 18, and he had a an 18-year-old experience recently. And so me and my dad's talking about it, and I'm laughing. And I said, "So the way that you would have handled this experience as a dad at 30 is very different than the way that you're handling this experience as a dad at 50." And he was like, "Yeah, back in my 30s, I would have yoked him up." And I'm like, "Oh, I know, I was there." But one of the things that we spend a lot of time talking about is just this. It's not even self confidence. I'm a very self confident person, but it's more than self. I think black people, black men specifically, um, we may have an issue with self confidence, but some of us have like this self confidence that is not informed by audacity. And so my dad's like, Rakim, you have the audacity to go out and say, I'm gonna write a book. I'm gonna do a TED talk. I'm gonna buy a house. Like it's audacity that has driven a lot of these decisions. It's almost kind of like this defiance to say, nah, I'm not gonna accept what was laid out in front of me because I believe in my greatness. And I think that when you talk about these core experiences that Black men should have, being a father, being a husband, being an entrepreneur, like all of those things teach you things about yourself, in relation to your community, in relation to what you are capable of, in relation to how other people perceive you and how you define the perception of who you are to the world. And so I'm not a father, I'm not a husband, but but I've been an entrepreneur, and it's been the most transformative experience of my life because like you said, I could have sat on the couch all day and said, you know what, God will provide. But if I don't go out and do this work, like I'm not gonna eat. And I realized that sometimes going out and doing this work and being too nice about doing the work is also not going to yield a paycheck, right? Like you have to go out and hunt, you have to go out and be aggressive. And so some of the painful financial experiences of entrepreneurship is a result of just being too nice. And so, like I said earlier, like sometimes you just have to step into this role of being the bad guy. And being the bad guy sometimes means, owning who you are and the presence that you have in the space. Doesn't matter who it pisses off. And that's something that I had wrestled with for a long time, in kind of deconstructing the influence of corporate America and the identity that corporate America gave me. Because you can't say this, you can't do this, you can't wear this, you have to respond this way. And I'm like, nah, like if I'm sitting around waiting, nothing's gonna get done. Like I need to go out there and get it. So I agree with you 100%. I think that that's beautiful that you have that experience and that you can see the impact of your actions on the way that your son is developing.
Yeah. Where can people find you? Where can they follow you? Where can they support what you got going on, man?
Everywhere at Rakim Sabri. Um, I've been doing a lot of cool stuff lately. So I went from within this year, I went from having 2 books to being an author of 5. So 3 books came out this year.
Wow.
Yeah, I haven't done a good job promoting it just because I just have my head down working. But I created a workbook that incorporates money systems and financial wellness called Flow. Here's a copy of it. Workbook is dope, pretty thick book. Definitely worth more than what it is that I'm charging for it. That was a collaborative project. I created a guided journal around financial wellness. So basically, there's a lot of prompts. Well, it's all prompts at the top of the page, and then lines for you to fill out. And then I contributed to author anthology called Money Talks that was led by a woman named Constance Craig Mason. And I have a little excerpt in there about financial trauma and the impact of financial trauma in the Black community. So I've been working behind the scenes, figuring out how I want to structure my business model. Do I want to continue to do B2C? Do I want to double down on B2B? Do I want to continue focusing on speaking? Do I want to focus on writing? Do I just want to be the expert and, come into these spaces and build something for them to then use? And so it's been fun, but at this moment, I'm still working one-on-one with people. So financial counseling, financial therapy through the lens of financial coaching is the service that I offer. I have a newsletter on Substack that has won 2 awards. You see 2 trophies behind me. This year, it's called Overcoming Financial Trauma. That's at rakimsabri.substack.com. My column at Forbes, you go to Forbes.com and name Rakim Sabri. You'll see some of the articles that I've written for them. TV show, podcast, those are still alive. I just need to be better about recording and releasing episodes. So I'm working on that. One of the things that I realize in all of the work that I'm doing is that I'm doing too many things at the same time. And so, I have someone that tells me all the time, you can have everything, but you can't have it all at the same time. And so one of the things that I will be working on in 2024 is how do I spread myself out to focus on these different initiatives so that I can do all of them and I don't get burnt out. But I'm active on all the social platforms at Rakim Sabri. And my website is rakimsabri.com. So check me out.
Man, we out here. Killing it. Good things happening. Shout out to you and all your success. It's cool to see all the success. You were successful before you left the 9 to 5, and it's just cool to see all these things happening for you and to see the production and 3 books in a year. That's impressive. Very impressive. Man, if you guys are not already following him, make sure you are following him. He's a good brother to know, and he's bringing. What I like about what he's doing is he has his lane, he stays in his lane, and he's just like mastering that lane and becoming known for that lane. And I think that's so powerful because it's easy to see what somebody else is doing and say, well, I'm going to be the business credit guru. I'm going to be the Airbnb guru. And while it may appear to be lucrative, and this is one of the things that I realized, is like when I first kind of got into this space, I was like, real estate. They're talking about real estate and they're making money. I'm going to talk about real estate and make money. And it wasn't until I landed on something that nobody else was talking about that things just went up. And so when I see people willing to take that leap and say, I know you guys are talking about whatever else you guys are talking about, but I'm going to talk about something that gives me an advantage to where now I walk in the room and they're looking at me and they win with it. And so it's dope to see you winning. It's dope to see Michelle winning. Dope to see Brandy winning. Dope to see Andre, to see Hatchet winning. Everybody in the chat, shout out to you guys in the chat. We're going to keep winning. And we're going to ramp up this productivity. We're going to ramp up this reading. If you guys want to read the book that I'm reading right now, I'm reading $100 Million Leads. Before that, I finished Never Split the Difference. Before that, I finished Atomic Habits. And then I think I read The Go-Giver before that. All great books. But if you want to read along with what we're reading in the Mastermind, which you can find at toddcapitalmastermind.com, we are reading $100 Million Leads, which is a great book on advertising. Man, there's so much power just in reading. I put out a tweet and I said that, like, if you read a book every week, you get smarter every week. And I realized that because it's going to start coming across in your conversations. It's going to start coming across in your execution and your productivity. A lot of the things that I've executed on are just things that I read. And so I realized, like, I need to get back in the reading grind. So the goal is a book a week for the rest of the year. And we're going to do it because we do it very easy. One hack that I would encourage you guys to do is what I do is I get the audio book and then I get the digital book. And so it costs me double, but it's worth it if you actually read through the book. Anything that you read, if they don't yield $30 in extra income, something's wrong. And so I just highlight the book as I'm reading it, and it helps you kind of stay focused, because if you're just kind of like reading it yourself, you can kind of zone out. But if you have the audiobook in your ear and it's kind of doing a lot of the heavy work while you're still reading it and highlighting key points, you can get through a lot of books that way. It's very easy. A book 6 hours on Audible. Like, if you can't get through 6 hours in a week, that's a problem. An hour a day is all you need. So with that,
that's a dope hack for you to share, because I was going to ask you, like, for people who struggle with sitting down and focusing on reading, especially reading at that volume. What is a tip that you would give them? And I read a lot for information. I read a lot for for these designations. Right now, I'm in the process of pursuing an accredited financial counselor, and so I've had to read textbooks, and I'm like, man, like this is hard to like go through such dense information in a very quick period of time. But I think that is is the hack that I'm going to use. I'm gonna read along with the audio. I think that's dope. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. So with that, we up out of here. Be back next week. Same bad time, same bad place. Peace. Let me hit my intro on these wonderful people.